What's up, you friggin' geniuses? So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to factor by grouping, okay? Now, in case you need a refresher, an intro into how factoring works, or just how to factor in general, I'll link a video to that in the card above, because that would obviously be really helpful for what we're doing here. But otherwise, I'm just going to jump into this first example right here. So y squared plus 4y plus 7y plus 28. Now, as you can see, there's nothing we can pull out from each of these terms, right? There's nothing that these four terms have in common. So in that case, you want to factor by grouping. And in order to factor by grouping, all you have to do is split your expression, this big expression, into two groups. And the way you do that is you take your first two terms, put that in one group, and then take your last two terms right there and put that in another group, okay? And then you just factor each of these individually. So here we have y squared plus 4y. Let's start with this one. So what's the biggest term that I can factor out of both of these? Well, that would be just a single y, right? So if I pull out a single y, what am I left with inside of my parentheses right here? Well, here, y squared, that's the same thing as y times y, right? And then here, positive 4y, that's the same thing as positive 4 times y, okay? And then all I did is I said, oh, okay, both of these have a y in common. So this one has a y, this one has a y. I'm going to take those out and just bring it out right there, okay? So what do I have left here in the parentheses? Well, I took one of these y's, right? So I'm just left with a single y right there. And then here, I took this y, so I'm just left with a positive 4 right there, right? Plus 4. Okay, or another way you could think about factoring is, instead of multiplication, you can think about it in terms of division. So I could say, oh, both of these terms are divisible by y. Okay, so then here, y squared divided by y, well again, y squared, that's the same thing as y times y, right? So on the bottom, we have one y, and that's going to cancel out with one of the y's on top. So we're just left with a single y on top right there, right? That's where the single y comes from. And then here, we have a single y on top and a single y on the bottom. So those cancel out, and we're just left with this positive 4 right here, right? Plus 4. Okay, so those are two different ways you can think about factoring. So now that we factored this one, now let's factor our second group right here. So positive 7y plus 28. Okay, so what's the biggest number or term I can factor out or divide out of both of these terms? Well, both of these terms are divisible by 7, right? So I can pull out a positive 7 from each of them, okay? And then what's left in the parentheses? Well, 7y divided by 7, the 7 on top and the bottom cancel out, so we're just left with this y right here. And then here, positive 28 divided by 7 is equal to positive 4, right? So plus 4. Okay, now this is the important part that you want to look out for. In this set of parentheses, we have a y plus 4. In this set of parentheses, we also have a y plus 4, okay? That's what you always want to happen. You always want to make sure whatever is inside of one set of parentheses is the exact same thing you have in your other set, okay? Whenever you factor by grouping, that's exactly what has to happen. Okay, so we have a y plus 4 here, we have a y plus 4 here, so we're going to write down y plus 4. Only one time, okay? I know there's two of them right here, but you only write it down once, okay? So we just took care of our y plus 4s, okay? And then we're going to multiply this by one last set of parentheses. And what goes in your parentheses here? Well, whatever you have left up here, okay? So we already took care of the y plus 4s, so all we're left with is this y and this positive 7, right? Plus 7. So that's what goes here, y plus 7, okay? So then that would be your final answer. Okay, let's go to this next slightly harder example. So xy cubed plus 3y squared minus 2xy minus 6. So again, in order to factor this by grouping, I want to split my first two terms into a group, and I want to split my last two terms into a group, okay? And notice whatever sign is here in the middle, you always include that sign with your second set of parentheses, your second group, okay? I did the same thing over here. We had a plus sign right there, so I included it in the second set of parentheses right there, okay? Just want to make sure you catch that with your sign, right? Now we can factor each of these individually. So here we have xy cubed plus 3y squared, okay? So what's the greatest common factor, the biggest thing we can factor out or divide out of both of these terms right here? Well, that would be y squared, okay? So what would be left in our parentheses right here? Well, to be clear, xy cubed, that's the same thing as x times y times y times y, okay? And positive 3y squared, that's the same thing as 3 times y times y. Okay, so all I did was pull out 2 y's from this side and pull out 2 y's from this side. Okay, and then I put it right there, right, the y squared. So what are we left with inside our parentheses right here? Well, we pulled out those 2 y's, so all we're left with is x times y, or in other words, just xy, right? And then here, we pulled out these 2 y's, so we're just left with this positive 3, right? So plus 3, okay? Now let's do the same thing over here, negative 2xy minus 6. So again, the biggest number, or the biggest term both of these are divisible by, would be negative 2, okay? This side is divisible by negative 2, and this side is also divisible by negative 2. So if I pull out a negative 2, there we go, what's left in our parentheses? Well, here, this negative 2 cancels out with this negative 2, so we're just left with xy, right, xy. And then here, negative 6 divided by negative 2, that's equal to positive 3, right, so plus 3, okay? So as you can see, here in these parentheses, we have xy plus 3. And in these parentheses, we also have xy plus 3, right? So we have the exact same thing in both of our parentheses, right? That's exactly what we're looking for. So now that we have that, now we can write it down, okay? And again, you only write it down one time. So xy plus 3, okay? So I'm done dealing with those. I already wrote it down. So what do we have left for our other set of parentheses? Well, all we have left is this y squared and this minus 2, right? So that's what goes here. Y squared minus 2, right? So then that would be your final answer. Okay, now let's do this last problem right here. So 10x squared plus 2xy plus 15yx plus 3y squared. Okay, so again, if I want to factor this by grouping, I want to split it into two groups, right? My first two terms go in one group, and my second two terms go in my other group, right? Now, again, we just factor these individually. So first of all, here we have 10x squared plus 2xy, okay? So what's the greatest common factor that we can pull out? Well, both of these numbers, or terms, are divisible by 2x, right? This one's divisible by 2x, and this one's divisible by 2x. So that means we can pull out a 2x. Okay, so what do we have left in our parentheses? Well, here, 10 divided by 2, that's equal to 5, right? And then here, x squared divided by x, well, x squared, that's the same thing as x times x, right? So this single x on the bottom is going to cancel out with one of the x's on top, okay? So then we're just left with a single x on top. So we'll put that right there. And then here we have 2xy divided by 2x, right? So the 2 on the top and on the bottom cancel out. The x on the top and the bottom, those cancel each other out. So then we're just left with this y right here, right? So positive y plus y. So plus y right there. Okay, and then we can factor this last one right here. So positive 15yx plus 3y squared. Now, what's the biggest number or term that we can pull out from both of these? Well, both of these are divisible by 3y, right? This one's divisible by 3y, and this one's divisible by 3y, okay? So if we can, and positive 3y, right? So that would be plus 3y. So if we can pull out a 3y, what are we left with inside of our parentheses here? Well, 15 divided by 3, that's equal to 5, right? And then this y on top cancels out with this y on the bottom. And then here we just have this x remaining, right? So we just write that right there. And then it's going to be plus, here, the 3 right here on top cancels out with the 3 on the bottom. And then here we're left with y squared divided by y, right? So again, y squared, that's the same thing as y times y. So we have a single y on the bottom. That's going to cancel out with a single y on top. So we're just left with this single y right there, right? So positive y, right? Plus y. So plus y. Okay, so as you can see again, we have the same thing in our parentheses, right? So 5x plus y, 5x plus y. That's exactly what we're looking for, that they have the exact same thing. So we're going to write that down, right? 5x plus y. Okay, and then what goes in our other set of parentheses here? Well, we're done with the 5x's plus y, right? So we're just left with this 2x and this plus 3y, right? 2x plus 3y, right? So then this would be your final answer. So if you found the video helpful, definitely leave a thumbs up down below. And if you have any other questions or want to see any other examples, just let me know in the comment section below. Also, there's a couple playlists attached that I think you'll find helpful, so definitely check those out, and I'll see you there.